So thanks everybody for joining the monthly licensing webinar from Ultima this morning. My name's Ian Gerard. I'm one of the Microsoft licensing specialists working for Ultima. So if you have any questions or you want to have any follow-up, of course, contact Ultima or contact your account team, but feel free to come to myself as well. We should be able to answer most of your questions. I think with these webinars, it's generally a relatively high level overview. So as you note the various points, certain ones will be relevant to you, some will not. So just contact us and then we can expand out and deliver these directly and really understand how it's going to impact your organization. The webinar today is around Microsoft in 2021, which is a fairly loose title, but it is all around trying to look at where Microsoft are going strategically and commercially this year. They have made some announcements and continue to make some product developments, but also some commercial announcements as well. We've had 6 months of the year. We have 6 months going in Microsoft's financial year. So we've started to build up an understanding how they are approaching renewals in regards to discount levels and funding and all of that kind of good stuff. So we'll run through all of that and there will be time at the end for some questions. I have put together an agenda. So we'll start off with looking at Teams, Microsoft Teams, and some of the things that Microsoft are doing, have been doing, and continue to do in that space. We'll then look at their E5 security suite and what's going on with Defender around that, and then have a quick look at the Power Platform and these other kind of RPA technologies Microsoft are doing, bots with attended, unattended. So we'll look at that area a little bit. We'll then move on to the commercial news, which really is talking about levels of discount and how to kind of what the expectation should be and what Microsoft are doing, generally speaking, in that space. I'll then update us around the agreements, of which there have been some updates, but again, this all does kind of fit together, and I'll cover off some other kind of Microsoft news at the end, and like I say, there will be some questions, but this all does kind of fit together. And I really wanted to put this slide up first because it's probably something you may or may not have seen before, but generally speaking, what is Microsoft's strategy? It's to sell Azure, of course, but also it's to sell that thing on the left, Microsoft 365 E5. There could potentially be an awful lot of value in that for your organization, potentially, but only if you use all of the functionality. So a lot of what Microsoft are doing commercially, strategically, with funding and with everything is ultimately all to drive sales of Microsoft 365 E5. I think that's probably pretty clear and not a huge insight in that. But what we'll look to do today is see how they're doing that and what they're doing in that space. I think on this slide, you can see on the left, the blue of the M365 E5 absolutely contains M365 E3. You can see that the blue block on the right there. But what also we're talking about is, well, the way that they're incentivizing organizations to get to E5 is by looking at things like the Power Platform, Teams, the phone system, audio conferencing, all these elements of E5 that you can buy as individual components. And what Microsoft want to do is to make it more attractive to buy the full suite rather than buying those individual components. So that's generally speaking, and don't get me wrong, the Azure piece and the Dynamics piece is still significant. But a lot of what they're doing, certainly in regards to renewals and discounts potentially, is around this space. But that's always worth bearing in mind. So that's where I really wanted to start. But as I said, I did want to also start with Microsoft Teams, probably because it's one of the questions that I do get asked a lot. Our account team does get asked a lot, obviously, with the wonderful way of the world and lockdown Teams and Zoom and all of these audio conferencing and video conferencing solutions have, been incredibly popular. No great insight there. And I'm always kind of asked, what's the free version of Microsoft Teams? Is it possible? Microsoft made a big song and dance about, well, if you don't have Teams, here you go, you can have it for free. And this free version of Teams is still available. It's not the full version, and you don't get it if you have already got Teams or if you've already got an online license. So again, it's Microsoft's idea around being able to move customers to the cloud. So if you've already got that cloud license, this isn't going to you're not really going to qualify yourself. So this free version of Teams, it does give you some of the functionality. It gives you the unlimited chat. I think there's some slight restrictions regarding the file share limit and with the amount of the size of the attachments that you have as well. Okay, I have just had a note saying that there is a slight issue with the sound. So I hope everyone can hear me. I will continue and I will ask my colleagues to perhaps just send me a little note if there's any issue with the sound there. So apologies if you are having some issues with the sound. In regards to those Teams licenses, I did want to really cover off the fact that it is pretty limited in regards to the call functionality. You can do 60-minute meetings, but up to a limit of around 100 people. Yeah, you can do the app integration, but other things such as linking in perhaps full audio conferencing or video calls is not fully available. I do think that's an important point to bear in mind though. And also when we start thinking about Teams, there is, and this was actually available last year, but I think now it's really coming into focus, is around the meeting room, or previously called meeting rooms, now called Teams rooms. And this is the concept of, again, being able to license the room as opposed to each individual user. So if you haven't invested in Office 365, every user, or especially not full telephony for every user or for the full audio conferencing, what you can do is you can buy a room license. And Team Rooms Standard is the one that's been available for a while, and that does include all of the licensing that would allow that users to go into that room and make conference calls, deliver conference calls, dial people in to those conference calls, dial out from those rooms, being able to manage those devices as well. So it includes the Intune license for device management, obviously the phone system, the conferencing, as well as the Teams licenses to do the actual technology. So that's been around in the market for a while, and that's called Standard. It's about £10 per user per month. Now, Premium has been introduced by Microsoft, which is, as you can see, significantly more, but that is effectively offering you a remote, proactive managed service around this room as well. So you do get a variety of services with that 24/7 support, which does include things like real-time monitoring, automated update management as well. So you have a situation where you're getting real-time alerts. So something does go wrong, you're being notified, and you can kind of act immediately and kind of proactively. You do get some dedicated experts around that as well. Automated support engineers, integration with ServiceNow as well, which I think lots of organizations are keen on. Finally is the enhanced insights, where you do get the reports and the dashboards and the insights and the recommendations. So it's all based around their kind of proven learnings. So with this premium license, you do get this kind of exclusive premium portal, so you can manage all of the rooms, plus really easy to engage Microsoft for that additional support. But there is a cost associated with that, and perhaps when you start returning to the office, maybe the premium Teams room license will become something that's relevant to your organization. Okay, so again, doing having a few sound issues, so I'm going to crack on, and like I say, a recording will be made of it. It has been made of this, and I'm more than happy to deliver it directly. So apologies if you are having sound issues, and we can always rerun this webinar as well. The next subject I wanted to come on to was just regarding the Microsoft Security Suite. So we were aware that E5 has got the telephony part of Teams and what Microsoft are doing there. Also another key part of E5, well actually the meeting rooms part is a little separate, to be fair, but on the security side, E5 security is a significant part. But Microsoft have actually been confusing matters, as they love to do, in regards to how they have rebranded their security suite. They've rebranded the advanced threat protection to effectively calling everything Defender, but a different type of Defender. So for example, Microsoft Defender was always previously the word for ATP on the desktop, the endpoint. So that's now called Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, which is basically advanced threat protection on Windows 10. What was previously Office 365 advanced threat protection is now Defender for Office 365, and previously Azure advanced threat protection is now Microsoft Defender for Identity. They do come with some more features. There have been some more features, some extended mobile threat defense alerts and elements like that, greater interoperability with the Mac OS. So Microsoft are making the product slightly better, being able to operate outside of just the Microsoft piece. It's therefore hopefully making it more adoptable to more organizations. And I think with the Microsoft, I've just moved on to the next slide, the Microsoft Power Platform here. But in regards to the security suite, even then, Microsoft have broken down that E5 security suite. You've also got the compliance suite. You might be a legal organization who is just interested in the customer key, locking down that data, security of that data. So you can kind of just buy that as an individual component. You might be interested in buying just perhaps the cloud app security element. So the whole Microsoft security piece is a major play from Microsoft. They've kind of rebranded a lot of the advanced threat protection into Defender, which is what that previous slide was about. But you can effectively see some really significant improvements in their security, and Microsoft have broken it down into individual components. So again, if any of those security features are of interest to you, then please contact us to learn more about those. And the way Microsoft are approaching that is they're saying, well, actually don't buy the full security platform. You can if you like, but that's going to set you back £10–13 per user per month. What you might want to do is just buy MCAS if that's all you're interested in, or insider risk management, or the higher compliance piece, or whatever it is that's relevant to your organization. So a lot of the work that I'm doing when we go into organizations is that profiling piece, is really understanding, yes, you need to profile your users, but you need to understand whether you need to manage them in slightly different, better ways as well. Just because, I mean, some of the Microsoft security suite, such as things like Lockbox, is going to be is like a tenant level service. So in theory, you do turn it on for all users, but does that mean every user has to have a license? No, not necessarily. It is a trust-based system, so only those who need to be covered by that should be. In regards to the Microsoft Power Platform, I think a lot of people think this is part of E5, but it is only the Power BI Pro element that's part of E5. But that's not to say this isn't a significant strategic play by Microsoft as they look to move down the RPA, support customers doing all kinds of RPA and automation. Now, that's just one element of it. That's Power Automate. There's Power Apps, which you can have these absolutely built into your organization. They can run online, they can run on Microsoft, or they can kind of run on Android or on those Apple devices as well. You've got Power BI for those business insights. There's Power BI Pro. There's also Power BI Premium, depending on the scale of the insights that you're doing as well. Power Automate and Power Virtual Desktop are there. So with Power Automate, which previously used to be called Power Flow, didn't used to be called Power Flow, used to be called Flow. Now it's called Power Automate. But effectively, it allows you really simply to create these paths and macros potentially where you're using pretty much a no-code approach. But all of this does require licensing, and if you do need to license this does tick the Microsoft box for their strategic products, and you'll get a lot of support in regards to technical support, helping you do workshops, helping you with SOEs, and helping you really prove the business case around the Power Platform, so you as an organization could potentially see the value. I did want to talk around something which Microsoft are doing a lot more of in 2021, which is just around the automation and RPA side. So a bit of background, which I know you don't necessarily need, but especially throughout 2020 and certainly moving into 2021, organizations are kind of using a wider array of tools to connect all the various applications and processes together including various different frameworks that might automate with other applications. So Microsoft have kind of acknowledged this, kind of acknowledged these types of scenarios, and they've introduced a license called Microsoft 365 unattended license. Actually, this has been around for a while, but we're talking about it more and more and more, especially when we're talking about things like Power Automate and the unattended and the bot licenses there. This all does fill together, and this all does kind of fit together. It is important to note that this license for unattended doesn't really change the behavior or functionality of the Office applications, but there is undoubtedly a need for this new type of license, because when you look at kind of licensing RPA, this kind of robotic process automation solutions, generally, and when we say RPA, basically all we're really talking about is an application, right? It's just a application or set of applications that is used to capture data, kind of perform these repetitive tasks. You know this. So specifically when we're thinking about the Windows client or a Office client, or Office desktop, or kind of Office 365 is involved, or bots are operating to any kind of element or within Office or within Windows 10, then basically you're going to need an unattended license. Now Microsoft provide this license, it gives the bots the use rights and allows it to access the software, and therefore you can effectively continue in a compliant manner. But Microsoft do recognize there's two different types of bots. You know, there's the attended and the unattended bots. So just to kind of follow that through logically into a really, really quick scenario here is, imagine you've got a system set up where there's an incoming customer email which triggers some kind of automated response. So there's three ways you potentially can do that: with an intended RPA, an unattended RPA, and without RPA at all. So that RPA at all is kind of a very manual process. User reads the email and decides what they need to do, and then they reply to that email. With the attended RPA, then the user actually triggers that macro, you know, which they see the email come in, they notice the keywords or phrases, and they trigger the macro to automate the process of doing the response. And then the attended bot with them does that response. And then the third way, which is the unattended RPA, where that whole process is automatic. Now, when it comes to licensing, the bottom way, without RPA, that means that individual user would probably need, let's say, a Microsoft 365 E3 license, because that's the user, multiple devices, that's the license that they need. On the top one there, the attended RPA, again, the user would need the Microsoft 365, just standard license, standard per user license, but then the attended bot would also need a license as well. It would need the Power Automate attended bot license, which is relatively simple to implement. With the unintended RPA, the one there through the middle with no individual user, it's in that scenario that you apply the M365 E3 unattended license to that bot. That bot really, again, just to kind of clarify, it's basically an application, or can be. And then you would still need Power Automate as well. So that's the scenario. And I think as more and more organizations are doing this, more and more organizations are going to require that unattended license. By the way, the unattended license is about £27 per user per month, which is about the same price, lo and behold, of Microsoft 365 E3, just that standard user license. So if you think, hey, I'm going to do some automation, it's going to really improve my processes, really look professional, give people their time back, improve focus, all that kind of good stuff, but you're not going to save money licensing, because if you were removing the user, you now have to apply a unattended license to that bot, basically. So I hope that's relatively straightforward, and my goodness me, there's so many scenarios in here, and this is something where you will, and we continue to do, kind of engage pretty directly with each scenario, which really is unique. Each scenario is unique. So moving on to the next area, we want to start talking around the commercial news, updates and insights from Microsoft in 2021. So starting with the price increase, which is an awful big subject. So you may notice I've not put anything in writing here. Of course, this is recorded, but again, the idea is that this is an insight, so you cannot take this for verbatim, and you know, Microsoft might not engage in the conversation around this. But I think the price increase is something that is always going to be really, really important. So the much insight that you have as soon as possible is for the better. Now, over the last 3 years, a bit of context, over the last 3 years, we've not really seen any significant price increase for Microsoft's online products. So when we're looking at E3, Exchange Online, SharePoint, Azure's actually come down. There's been no price increase, incremental, maybe 2 or 3%. And in some cases, actually, I've run the scenario, it's actually at 0. Now, that's not necessarily the case across the board, because on their on-premise products, we have seen between a 14 to 35% increase in price. Again, subtle as a sledgehammer, Microsoft increasing the cost, significantly increasing the cost of their on-premise licensing to push the benefits, push the value, push the commercial advantages of buying online licensing instead, making that break-even point around sweating the asset and signing into that subscription, making that taking it from kind of 3 years to almost being pretty much prohibitive. There is going to be a price increase on the online licensing, I think. Microsoft, it's due. We're after 3 years, so the online license increase is due. And as a partner, you know, Microsoft, there was rumors of a price increase impacting it in July the 1st, 2020, that the partner community was aware of, and high-level discussions were being had, but pretty swiftly it was decided that that would be entirely, with the world being as it was, and never say never with Microsoft, right? But even Microsoft noticed that that wasn't the most, trying to pick my words carefully, let's just say the most clever idea. Now, as a partner, we get visibility of a price list 30 days before it is released. You know, you start using it. So on the 1st of January, we got visibility of the February price list and so on and so forth. On the 1st of January this year, in reviewing the February price list, we did notice that there was a price increase on the online licensing, specifically for Microsoft 365 E3, and its price increase was 6%. Which basically meant there was going to be a price increase of 6% in February. So as a partner, we contacted Microsoft, the partner community, it wasn't just Ultima, let's be honest, and we all went, hey, that's crazy. And Microsoft responded, or words to those effect, and Microsoft responded, that was a mistake. We are sorry, that is not accurate. Please disregard this. I think what we do know is that there was going to be a price increase, which Microsoft delayed for the entirety of their financial year in kind of 2020, 2021. I think what we got was visibility of what that price increase is likely to be. I don't think you accidentally implement a price increase on you can accidentally release the price list, but that work itself was very curious. So I think, and again, Microsoft will not enter into these types of conversations. There's nothing in writing. I'm not putting this in writing, but I think that you need to be thinking that there is going to be, in the next 12 to 24 months, I think certainly for this financial year up to the end of June, no, but I think there is going to be potentially a 6% price increase on the Microsoft Online products. So that is definitely worth bearing in mind, depending, and although, again, probably not a live conversation Microsoft will entertain. And they'll kind of say, where'd you get that information from? And they will deny it, I would suggest. But please speak to us and we can have those types of conversations. We're speaking to Microsoft at that high level. So again, this is all part of our negotiation strategy. And in that mind, when it comes to discounting, Microsoft haven't done a price increase, they say, on the on-premise products, on the online products, but where does that leave them in line with discounting? Because 3 years ago, if you were signing up to Office 365, you may have got 15, 16, even 20, 25%, depending what levels of discount. And the fact is that we're simply not seeing those levels of discount anymore, and we haven't for over kind of 18-month period. Obviously, negotiating hard, competitive product using the strategic products. But just so you're aware, and just as a general update, over the last 12 months, if you are renewing an E3 level, Microsoft 365 E3 level of online licensing, 3 years ago, you might have been expecting a 15 to 25% discount, depending on your users and depending on the other stuff that you're doing. Right now, we're seeing single digit discounts for E3 renewals. And that's worth bearing in mind and a starting point, but it is something that I think a lot of customers are surprised. They may be expecting double digits, but almost across the board, E3s are coming in at single digit discounts. Look, if you're over 2,400 users, if you've got elements of E5, if you've got elements of the security or the power platform, that's how we change that conversation, of course. In regards to Azure as well, you're going to need to be spending over £1 million a year in Azure for Microsoft to discount the Azure price for you. So again, one common tactic is what to do is to get Microsoft to take the holistic approach and recognize that Azure spend and add some additional discount on the Office 365 side. But also as a partner community, this is what we're doing to say, well, actually, you can not get a discount from Microsoft, and you might be buying that directly from Microsoft or on a pay-as-you-go. So I think a lot of partners are putting together their CSP offerings where we can actually offer you a better price, black and white commercial price, but then have a wraparound service to actually optimize your Azure usage and offer you a platform, offer you some cost management, offer you a full wraparound managed service if that's what you need. So I think certainly from the partner community, certainly from Ultima, but also from Microsoft, they're trying to offer more around the Azure because they're not really going to discount it. So it really becomes all around optimizing it and making sure you're using it in the smartest way, and then getting Microsoft to recognize that level of Azure commitment, potentially in discounts on some of your other products, which may or may not be up for renewal. So it's a very fluid conversation. And the final piece there is around the Microsoft funding. Because Microsoft are still doing funding, especially at the start of this year, they've refilled their ESIF pot. And when I say ESIF, I'm referring to, oh my goodness, I'm going to forget the acronym now. It used to be BIF funding, Business Investment Funding. ESIF funding is End Customer Investment Funding. And this really is for any area of technology that you haven't currently got or currently using. And Microsoft will work with you. You need to do a full business case, ultimately work with you to try and apply for that funding and through the delivery of workshops, hopefully proving the value, proving the business case for those particular products. You may also hear quite a lot, and we are certainly asked quite a lot around Fasttrack. And Fasttrack is still going to be a thing in 2021. It is still going to be important and crucial. Ultima have a Fasttrack portal program, and I'm sure there's lots of others out there in the field as well. Every single customer might experience Fasttrack differently, might need Fasttrack for different reasons or different workloads, or just interact with it in a different way. Microsoft have changed Fasttrack a lot over the last few years. Fasttrack used to be Microsoft coming in and doing the work for you. Brilliant. Then that was something which customers loved, so Microsoft, and took advantage of. And Microsoft resources, was being pulled, so they have changed it slightly. Now Fasttrack, and again, there might be different partners out there, but a good way to approach, or a good way to think about Fasttrack is actually it's you doing the work. It's still you, the end customer, doing the work. No one's going to come on site and do that work for you, but you can have multiple Fasttrack workloads. And what it is, it's like a support contract, like a managed support, like a telephone support contract wrapped around that. So you might be, and you've got to be having at least 150 active users, but if you're doing it in Exchange, that's one Fasttrack workload. You might also be doing it in Teams, that's another. And then you get a number of vouchers allocated to you, and those vouchers then provide like a telephone support contract, so you can get a set number of tokens depending on the amount of users that you have, and then you've got access kind of to business hours support, access to a kind of third line technical support or professional services to just kind of, hey, we've done this, is this the right way to do, can you check our working? And really that's what Fasttrack is. You have a manager to help manage you through that portal. So that is still a thing in 2021, but maybe it's a little bit different from what it used to be in the past. I think there's such a need to talk to us directly when it comes to your own commercial situation and renewal. In regards to Microsoft agreements, there's been some updates, which is fantastic. So CSP is the monthly online licensing program, which means you can increase and decrease licenses on a monthly basis. All Microsoft's online products are on there. They did have some on-premise products, things like RDS, CALS, or that Windows Server or SQL, but they're all as subscription licenses. There is now the availability of perpetual licenses on CSP and have been kind of since November, but even more products are being added almost every single month. So this is, literally being able to go and buy some perpetual licenses on that CSP platform. So again, when we start thinking about Select Plus being filtered out, we start thinking about MPSA being removed. Well, how am I going to buy my perpetual licenses if I don't have an EA? Then now we're seeing CSP really picking up that slack. So eventually you will see two agreements is going to be CSP and EA. I think there'll be the two agreements in time from Microsoft. We're seeing the Azure plan be available on CSP now. So it's probably worth bearing in mind there was two ways to buy Azure, if you like, kind of the old way, the original way, with all these kind of various Azure offers, and now the new way with Azure plan, which kind of EA customers have been using for years and has always been that case, but that is now available on CSP. So it's all billed via that new commerce platform. So you have access to the kind of the global pricing rate, far better. You can have multiple subscriptions, start helping out with your budgeting, that kind of cost management piece. So Azure plan on CSP is a pretty great thing, and please speak to us, to make sure that you're making the best of that. Kind of available from February. In regards to perpetual licensing coming on CSP, that CSP, which has always been monthly online. Well, because we're seeing things like MPSA retirement and the open agreement retirement, which has been has been it's been in place for so long now. But just to kind of confirm, really from the 1st of January 2021, whether you're a commercial organization, a charity, or a government, you can no longer start a new open agreement. They are no longer available. And actually, sorry, on the previous point regarding Azure plan, I did meant to mention that the old Azure plan, the old way of buying thing, is still going to be available. Is still going to be available for the most of 2021. When we get to July this year, new customers are going to have to use Azure plan. If you've already got the old Azure offer, you can continue to use that, but then the old Azure plan is being officially retired in 2022. So I did just mean to tack that bit on, sorry. But yeah, the open agreements, as you can see, no more. But we will see CSP pick up the slack, ideally. So that gives you some idea, hopefully, around where Microsoft are going commercially, with their funding, but also with what they're doing with the products that they're introducing, the agreements they're taking away, the agreements they're improving as well. So I hope that was a good insight. But really, if any of this has been relevant to you, please do contact us, because it will be more relevant once we start looking at your unique scenario. But these slides will be made available. There's my contact details, and please let me know. Please let me know if you have any questions. Excellent. Okay, so again, I'm so sorry. It does feel like, but I've got the names of those who had the sound issue, so we'll contact you directly. And I just let me know if you need anything else. But thanks very much for your time. Take care, stay safe, and goodbye.